Copyright disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. No copyright infringement intended. All rights belong to their respective owners.
This is War Cry. We're on the wall crying out for our children, our communities, our schools, our churches, our families. This is War Cry. Welcome to our reality. Gun violence, Chicago, Philly, Detroit, New York, Atlanta, just to name a few. Our black children are dying day by day. This is War Cry. Police brutality. Hands up! Don't move. I can't breathe. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Hashtag All Lives Matter to Christ. This is War Cry. Drugs, rape, mass shooting, school violence. This is War Cry. Galvanizing people to pray for our children and to take action. Let's march on Washington. We want prayer back in school. This is War Cry. Cameras, memorials in every corner in our neighborhood. Who died this weekend? Oh no, not Miss Martha's grandson. This is War Cry. He was only 16. His brother died last year. He was only 13. This is War Cry. We the people. We're the elected officials. This is War Cry. We need the church. Where's the church? Only on Sundays. Get to the streets, church. We need you out there. This is War Cry. Girl, be gone. Boy, be gone. Mothers crying. Fathers being locked up. Welcome to our reality. Identity crisis. This is War Cry. Oh, they're trying to remove our history off the textbook. Oh, critical race theory? It makes them feel bad. It's our reality. Fake reality shows. We want the real truth. Stay woke. This is War Cry. HBCUs under attack. This is War Cry. Equal pay for what we do. We want a reparation. This is War Cry. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Wait a minute. Is that somebody else they're burying that looks like us? Only 12. This is War Cry. Let us come together and pray for our young people, pray for our communities, pray for our schools, pray for our churches, pray that the government gives us what we need, a fair opportunity. This is War Cry, home of the land, home of the brave, land of the free. Who's free? Our men are locked up. This is War Cry. Hashtag mothers against gang violence. Hashtag fathers who love their sons. Hashtag what would Jesus do? This is War Cry.
I know who goes before me. I know who stays behind. The God of Israel's army is always by my side.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. And this is War Cry, another dynamic program that's been designed especially for you. You know why? Because we want to discuss some of the things that you would not hear anywhere else. This is an urban Christian radio. And what does that mean? That means we, the people, care about what's happening with the people. All the Pookies and Ray Rays and all your cousins that you don't know about, guess what? We care about them. We care about our children. We care about our children. I want to say that again. We care about our children, all of our children, even the children that society has pushed aside. We care, and we're going to stand in the gap for those children. We care for our communities, those communities that have been forgotten about. You know those communities that you don't even want to drive through. You know those communities that you don't even want to visit your cousins. Those communities we care about. We care about the church, not the so much mega church that has everything and can address everybody's needs. Now, I want to say they may be able to address everybody's needs, but guess what? Are they really addressing the spiritual needs? I'll leave that one alone. But we care about the churches that are in the trenches. That's what we care about. The churches that are in the trenches. We have a love for the churches. We have a love for our schools. You know those schools that don't have the best teachers, don't have the best curriculums. Oh, I know. All kids learn at the same rate, but you know better than that. You and I both know better. Now you can hit us up on warcry.children at our Gmail account and let us know some of the names of those children that have really been laid on your heart that you want us to pray for. We have a wall. It's called the praying wall, but it's a wall of lamentations. The same type of wall basically they have in Israel where they go and put little prayers in them. But we wake up each morning calling out your children's name, your Isaiahs, your Jordans, your Keon, your Calebs. We're calling their names out, your Alicias, your Mararas, your Lataras, your Leahs, your Ashleys. We're calling out those names. Why? Because those names, number one, matter to God and they matter to us. So if you have a child or children or community children that you want us to pray for, please, dear sir, please, dear ma'am, hit us up on our Gmail account, which is warcry.children@gmail.com. Our website is Warcry for Our Children. So please stay tuned because there's more to come. Ask for a t-shirt. We have t-shirts that says, I am praying for our children. June is going to be out. You can wear a t-shirt. You can shop in the shirt. You can wear the t-shirt to the mall. But our kids need to know that somebody's praying for them. Everybody don't have a big mouth. But you can definitely make an affirmation. I am praying. And let the enemy know. Put the enemy on call that you are a prayer warrior. This is War Cry, and we have with us our very own the other host of the show, Dr. Gregory Johnson, and Bishop David S. Butler was supposed to be here as well, but we don't know if he. Oh, Bishop Butler, you got in. Amen. Amen. Amen.
I'm all in.
Good morning, Dr. Johnson is here.
Yeah, we got Dr. Johnson and we got Bishop Butler here. Oh, he learned new technology today. I am grateful to that, Bishop. We push you to a higher level. And you know this is War Cry. And we're going to talk about some dynamic things today. Now, the first thing I want to do is I just want to have just a discussion before we go into our topic, talking about the Black man. You know, Father's Day is approaching. Juneteenth is here. Yesterday was Children's Day. This is also gun violent month. The color is orange. God Squad 67 Precinct is out on the block, rocking the block with prayers and prayers and prayers. So it's time for us to come out too. So we're going to talk about something, but I want to ask, since I have two theologians on here, I want to turn to Isaiah 1 and verse 17. And Isaiah 1 verse 17 reads, learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, and plead the widow's cause. Psalm 72 verse 4 says, may he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the children of the needy, and crush the oppressor. And crush the oppressor. Now I'm going to turn this over to, let's look at this. I just repeated Psalms 1 and 17, Isaiah 1 and 17, and Psalm 72 and 4. Now I'm going to start with you, Bishop Butler. I can call you Dr. Bishop Butler. What do you think about the social justice aspect of the Bible? We appear to leave this out, and we appear to paint a different people of Jesus when it comes to the oppression. What do you think?
As you read the scriptures, I thought about Sean Hannity and others on Fox News that reject social justice. They reject the whole concept. And so, by implication, they reject the word of God. God is a God of justice. The word Jehovah Sitkanu actually means not only righteousness, the God of righteousness, but it also means justice. Justice and righteousness are intertwined. And so you cannot have righteousness without having justice. And the slogan, no justice, no peace, is true, because justice is the epitome of the character of God. And God is not only love, but he's Jehovah Shalom, our peace. So there cannot be injustice without there being chaos and confusion and disruption and violence. And so they are intertwined, they are biblical, and we must, Psalms 81 talks about it as well. Psalm 81. We must have the desire to obtain justice, because that's the nature of God, and that's how the kingdom is set up.
Interesting, because it appears that a lot of our white theologians or churches or pastors, they've left the part of knowing the scriptures that pertain to justice out of what they preach and what they believe. Dr. Gregory Johnson, what do you feel about those scriptures I read?
When I heard you read those scriptures, the Spirit of the Lord brought something to my attention. When the children of Israel were getting ready to go to battle, they said, send Judah first. And a lot of people don't realize it, but the first slaves that were brought here to these shores called America, the majority of those slaves were from the tribe of Judah. Even though you had a tribe of Benjamin and Levi mixed in there, it was the tribe of Judah. Judah has been waging war and going forth for a long time. And justice will not prevail until Judah gets in line first. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about the church. When they say put prayer back in the church, you know something? We got to put prayer back in the church too. A lot of churches ain't praying. Not like they should be. We're raising money, but they ain't praying. Let us go forward.
How could our white theologians not see what we see and not discuss what we discuss? Dr. Johnson, did they just tear these pages out of Isaiah and tear this out of Psalms? Well, the Bible was in its totality for everyone. Why are they overlooking this?
They are in spiritual denial. They're in social fear, and they are in democratic instability. As a very nice word to put it, because let us not remember, they know who we are. These white theological people, evangelists, and whatever you want to call them, they know the truth. They're in denial about it, and they're very afraid of it. And before they allow it to go forth, they plan to burn this place down, because they're not going to be second or feel left out.
Now, let me read two more for you, gentlemen. Psalms 9:9. The Lord is a stronghold for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. Now, I'm going to read another one. Psalm 72. I'm going to read another one. Proverbs 14:31. Whosoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker and his maker, but he who generously gives to the needy honors him. They're here, they're in the Bible. Bishop Butler, what you think about that? Do you think I just made these up? I just inserted these in Proverbs? They've always been here. Why is it that nobody sees these scriptures about the oppression and about marginalizing of people of color? Bishop Butler.
All right. Now the doctor has indicated some things also that I'd like to bring out. If you turn to Deuteronomy 28, it will tell you what would happen to us, Judah, and the other tribes, if we didn't obey God.
Yes.
The Bible speaks of, so our problem is not so much with what other people do to us as much as it is what we've done to God. And verse 29 says, thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore. Verse 32 says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. Verse 33, the fruit of the land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. Thou shalt only be oppressed and crushed already. Verse 37, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee. And verse 41 goes on, said, thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Verse 48 says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he hath destroyed thee. And then the last verse, I'm going to skip over to the last verse. Now, two more verses, 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all the people from one end of the earth even unto another. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And verse 68, and the Lord God shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondsmen and bondswomen, and no man shall buy thee. In other words, God is
now, Bishop, I just want to say something, and then Dr. Johnson, I got that. But guess what? We've already went through that. When are we going to be able to be moved? I think we paid in blood, sweat, and tears for all of the past sins that we did. When are we going to be allowed to move from point A, B, C, D, instead of still coming underneath this curse? Before I give it back to you, Dr. Butler, I'm going to let Dr. Johnson comment. When we gonna move? We know that.
Well, Elder, you have brought a very significant point out, but let us remember, you are right. We have gone through that, and we have completed that commitment, and in some ways, that curse that was placed upon us. According to the original Hebrew Bible, it ended in 2019 of August. It has been a shift among us, believe it or not. If you will notice, our people are coming together as never before. The genocide and hatred against our people has intensified. There is more fear. There is more problems. There is more opposition. There is more stagnatic confusion that is prevailing. But yet we are coming together. As the prophet Ezekiel says, the valley of the dry bones, they're coming together. The bones are coming together. They are recognizing who they are. When you take a people and you take his history and you take his memory of who he is, hey, you have dominated him. And this is one of the curses that was put on us for our disobedience. So Bishop Butler was right. There are some things that we're going through and went through, and then some people say still going through, we brought it upon ourselves. We broke the commandments. We broke the covenant relationship for our God, and we paid for it.
And let me say something, Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson, I want to come in. Let me say something. Then I'm going to let Bishop Butler. I heard all of that, but so many other races have broke the covenant and the relationship with God too. And I'm still coming. When is enough enough? Bishop Butler.
I want to answer that. God used the Assyrians, God's enemies, to whip Israel. God used the Babylonians, our enemies, to whip Judah. God doesn't necessarily bless them, but he uses them to cause us to come back to him. So it's just because these other folks seem to be blessed doesn't mean that they're God's friends.
Amen.
But he used the Syrians and the Babylonians to whip us into shape. But verse 1 and 2 answers your question. And I want to say this before I go to verse 1 and 2 of Deuteronomy 28, is that 1619 to 2019 is 400 years, but it actually took 430 years for God's chosen to get into the promised land. So in the next, there's now 23. In the next, you count the difference, I guess that's 4 more years than 19. So we got the next 26 years is going to take us to get into the fullness.
The next 26 years, let me tell you something. It didn't take the Orthodox Jews to take this long. They went through some tragedies as well. But it appears that after they came out from these tragedies that they faced, and I'm not downplaying what they went through as a people, but what I'm saying is that it appears that when they came out, they was blessed and highly favored. They own more 75% of the wealth of this nation. When is enough enough? When are we gonna get our restoration? Restitution.
Well,
Deuteronomy 28 and verse 1 and 2. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. We have to.
I'm doing all I can do. I'm living all I can live. You are too. So why is it, Dr. Johnson? I'm doing everything we can do, Dr. Johnson.
Elder, you got to differentiate and understand this point. Those Gentile Jews, they're not part of the covenant that we have. Two different people altogether. These people, or these so-called Jews who you think are being best, well, the Apostle John, and when you look at him, and he wrote in the book of Revelation, he says, that's the synagogue of Satan. Oh, yes, Satan going to take care of his folks. Yeah. Don't get us confused. The covenant relationship that God made with his original people and what is being blessed now, who are not Jews, but call themselves Jews. Two different things altogether. Yeah, they're being blessed, and everything they've been blessed with, they don't stole. They didn't earn it. They took it. Remember that.
And this is the dispensation of the Gentiles.
Yeah.
The Gentiles in the last 2,000 years, God has allowed them to prosper, and they have been allowed to be in charge. But their time is coming up. They're finished. They know it. That's why they're in acts of desperation to try to keep power over God's chosen.
Yes,
but the time is about up.
Racism, and hate mongering is running rapid in 2023, and it's been doing that. 2020, when we had to shut down and lock down, you would have thought that when we came out, black and white, Jews and Gentiles, we would have came out with a praise. We would have came out trying to work together in unity. That lasted all of 3 months. Just like when we dealt with Just like when we dealt with 9/11. When 9/11 happened, we all got together singing Kumbaya, Kumbaya. But guess what? It lasted only 3 to 4 months. There is a rage going over these states, these United States, and restoration or restitution. I doubt it. Okay, let's go to the first video, engineer. And tell me, gentlemen, what you think about this.
I can't see for some reason. I'm not able to see.
Last Friday around 9 p.m., Advocacy A.J. Owens, a mother of 4, was shot and killed by an unidentified woman in Ocala, Florida. According to civil rights attorney Ben Crump, who is now representing the Owens family, AJ's children, who are 3 to 12 years old, were playing in a field next to an apartment complex when a 58-year-old white woman allegedly began yelling at them to get off her land and calling them racial slurs. According to Crump's statement, the children left, but accidentally left behind an iPad, which the woman took. When one of the kids tried to retrieve it, the woman threw it, hitting the boy and cracking the screen. Ms. Owens walked across the street to speak to the woman, but Crump's office says when she knocked on the door, the neighbor allegedly shot her through the closed front door. The bullet hole is shown here in photos provided by Crump's law firm. Owens was shot and later pronounced dead at the hospital. The shooter responsible has not yet been identified, arrested, or charged. The family held an emotional news conference today to demand answers and, importantly, an arrest. The Marion County Sheriff's Office also held a press conference today. They did not confirm or deny Trump's account, but they did say they know who the shooter is. There had apparently been an ongoing feud between the shooter and Owens about her children. The sheriff also shared that when Owens came to the shooter's door, there was a heated exchange before Owens was shot through the door. At least 2 of the children may have witnessed the shooting. Joining me now in their first interview is Pamela Diaz, the mother of A.J. Owens, A.J.'s son, Isaac Williams, and Ben Crump, the attorney representing the family. Thank you all for being here. And I am so sorry for your loss. I've been sick about this all day, to be honest, since I heard about it this morning. So I'm so sorry for your loss. But I want to just make sure that I got all of those details correct, Ms. Diaz. Is there anything you want to correct about the way that I told the story?
Thank you, Joy, for the opportunity to speak with you. I would like to say that yes, there was an iPad left behind. My grandson, the daughter of Ashika, did go back to retrieve it. The woman, Susan, did have it. The white woman, Susan, had it, would not give it back to my grandson. An item was thrown at him. He went home to tell his mother, as any normal child would do.
Yep.
As a parent of any child hearing such news, would go to the adult home to ask what happened. She simply knocked on the door. The woman shot her through the closed door with her son, 9 years old, standing next to her.
Let me ask you about the...
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. Go on.
My daughter did, as I said, any parent would do. Want to talk to the adult to find out why she had his belongings, why she threw items at her child. She simply knocked on the door, was unarmed, no weapons, just wanted answers, wanted to speak to another adult regarding an incident involving her 9-year-old son, who was standing next to her.
And let me ask you about this, because the sheriff has tried to portray this as a feud, but these are little kids, you know, these are babies that are playing, which what kids are supposed to do. It is your understanding that this woman called the children racial slurs? I'm assuming I know what racial slur that you mean.
The N-word, slaves, other profanity, B-words, you name it. This was not the first incident. This has happened numerous times.
Let me go to you, Ben, because I lived in Florida for a long time. I have had to knock on and ring the doorbells of neighbors for, issues regarding our kids. That seems like the most normal thing that a mom would do. If there's ever a problem, our kids would come and get me or their dad, and we would go and talk to the neighbor. That is the normal way the world is supposed to work. But now in Florida, you have stand your ground. And I can't imagine kids could trick or treat in Florida now because it's too terrifying, because there are people who would shoot anybody that they see coming at their door or on their driveway. How is it possible, though, that with the door closed, this woman can have access to the stand your ground law? How can you say you're standing your ground when there's a closed door between you and the woman, the mom, standing outside your door with a 9-year-old child?
Joy Reid, it is asinine when they try to justify this unjustifiable killing of this mother of 4 who was killed in front of her children. I mean, it is heartbreaking on every level. And the fact that they have not arrested this killer is appalling. We know, Attorney Thomas and I talked about, if the roles were reversed, there is no way they could tell us they would not have arrested a black woman from shooting a white woman through her door.
All right, engineer, that's enough. That's enough for us to get this conversation started. All right, Dr. Johnson and Bishop Butler, you've heard the conversation. This mother's children was playing on common grounds. They were not even in the yard of the white woman. They were playing in a common area. She heard them playing. She comes outside, start cursing them, using the N-word. You know that N-word, our kids say it's not offensive because they're saying N-I-G-G-A, but I'm sure she used N-I-G-G-E-R. And they try to convince us that there's a difference, and that gives them a right to say it, and for people to say, as long as they're saying nigga instead of nigger, it's okay. But I'm going to tell you something. The word needs to be banished, period. But now she comes outside. She sees them in a common area. She gets offended because they're making noise or because they're black. She runs them away, curses them out. They are so terrified, they leave the iPad behind. One of the kids go back to get the iPad. She takes it and throws it and hits the kid. They run and tell their mother. What parent would not defend their kids? If it was my mama, we would have still been dealing with the situation, only on the reverse area. Every animal defends their young ones. The eagles, the bears, every animal. And you're going to tell me now they're taking our right away because of the fact that she's black and Florida's stand your grounds? And by the way, she's been eulogized today by Al Sharpton. Thank you for doing that. Dr. Johnson, what do you feel?
Elder, I want to go clinical right now because to try to explain this in a natural, it's be very difficult for a lot of people to accept. And most people who accept it, they really accept the really totality of it, they're going to get depressed. We are dealing with a psychotic hatred never before known to man, and it will never be known again. Most of the people who have this hate, they can't even explain it themselves, but they know they have it and they feel it. This started really in 1900. It got solidified and the birds opened their eyes in 1955 with Emmett Till, and it is continually getting worse, and it's going to get much worse. We should not spend so much time trying to understand this hatred because you can't understand something that don't understand itself. It's going to get worse. But be aware, this hatred is there. It is being influenced by Satan himself. He has the greatest thing against us more than he knows who we are, and he hates us with a passion that can't hardly even be explained. There are no words for it. We
Now let
must
me ask you a question.
understand.
Dr. Johnson, what would your mama have done?
Oh, you don't want to hear that. But if my mama had have been alive and she'd have seen that, and she was a praying woman, but if something had happened, if that had been happened to me or any of my brothers and sisters, my mama would have lost her mind. She would not have stood in front of that woman's door. She'd have kicked the door in, and she would have most likely taken this woman's life even before she got her gun together. And then after she took her life, she would have started praying. See,
All right.
I would tell you, when you threaten a mother's children, you bring the psychosis out of that mother that she don't even know she got.
Absolutely. Now, Bishop Butler, what do you think about this?
As I was listening about the remarks from our distinguished co-host, the racial hatred, racial superiority. Racism is real. Racism is cancerous. Racism is alive and well. Racism has affected every aspect of our American life, every sphere of American life. Our educational system, in Florida is certainly a case of that. Our judicial system, our legislative system, our ecclesiastical system, and as we see here, our social system, families and communities, all have been impacted by the ugliness of racism, which has become normal in the lives of many people. Many of them are Anglo. Then I'm not saying that other people cannot be racist, but in this case, we're talking about systemic, institutional racism that is part of and integral to American society from its beginnings. It's racism that killed our leaders, Malcolm and Martin. It's racism that banished Marcus Garvey. It's racism that destroyed the Panthers and the US organization in California. America has a problem. Somebody mentioned fear earlier. America has a problem in its core. There's a fear of Black people because of.
But Bishop Butler, let me just interject. Why is there such a fear of Black people when you just sit here, read almost a whole book of Deuteronomy, and Dr. Johnson just told us that we are the called out ones, but yet we are the ones that still dealing with this every day, and it has increased. We didn't get what was that we was promised, Dr. Johnson, our 1 mule and 40 acres of land. Didn't they promise us that when they freed us, Dr. Johnson or Bishop Butler? Am I getting it right? They promised to give us a mule and 40 acres of land. They never did that.
Never trust a liar. Never trust a liar.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what they promised. That was supposed to be our restitution. In case somebody's listening, this is War Cry. This is an urban radio Christian station. We are not politically correct, but we are Christ correct. We want you to share and continue to join us because we're fighting for those that are oppressed and that have been marginalized. And we're going to tell it the way it is because we're talking about the oppression of our people. If you could stand behind a closed door and shoot a Black mother who you've hit her kids and she's coming out to ask you. See, my mama probably, I'm gonna put a disclaimer on this. She wouldn't have went there without nothing in her hands. I'm with you, Dr. Johnson. My mother would have had something. Now, my auntie now, They would have did it another way. They would have waited until you went to the garbage can or put your garbage out, or they would have waited till you went to your car. See, they would have did it another way because it was 22 of them. Yeah, so we've got to talk about this because there's hate baiting, and this woman was not even arrested. Dr. Butler, she wasn't even arrested. So the cop went there, took the report. Well, she threatened me. Oh, she did. Oh my God. Oh, good. Well, can I check under the box of stand your ground? Yes. I felt threatened. She had said to me something and I was terrorized. Why did she have a gun anyway? To shoot somebody and protect herself. Doctor, I want you, David S. Butler, a militant who was in the Black Panthers and the Urban League, the NAACP. Answer that question. When is enough enough?
I wasn't in the Panthers, but I was in Black nationalism. We were integral part of what's called the US organization, in Yehudu Sasa School in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuyvesant, with Imam Baraka, Yusuf Iman, J2 Weusi. And it indicates, number one, that many white people do not deem the value of Black people. So we considered at one point 3/5 of a man. Prior to that, not even a man, an animal. So the attitude, even in the political and judicial system, is that you didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't worth anything anyway. So we're not going to even charge you. Or if we charge you, we're going to slap you on the wrist, based on the response that the Black community gives. So the value of Black lives, and that's why the idea of Black Lives Matter is so important, that we do matter. We were created in the image and likeness of God, and we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And once we recognize who we are and stop listening to our enemy to define us and waiting for our enemy to free us, we will be in better position. And learning, of course, to obey God all throughout the scriptures. It says that, again, another scripture, 45 says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Idolatry and immorality is our problem.
Amen.
Right?
And it's everybody else's problem, Bishop Butler. It's just not the Black problem. It's just not a Black problem. See, that's what I'm trying to tell you guys.
But we are the chosen. But we are the chosen. And so God expected us to take the light to the Gentiles, not take darkness.
We've been doing that.
Not be part of it.
Dr. Johnson, you want to come in? I know, listen. 400 years is enough. Let me tell you, 400 years, the Israelites, Hebrews, cried out for God to take them underneath the taskmaster of Pharaoh. Guess what? And God released and sent a deliverer. Where is our deliverer at? Dr. Johnson.
Well, Elder, we got to deal with the reality. Yeah, God delivered us from that first slavery. And what did we do? We got worse. So bad that when Moses delivered us and took us out of there, he had to let us wander for 40 years to get rid of them folks that were not going to be of no use. They were no good. He had to let them die out. Then the new generation who had a new mind were allowed to go forth. The same thing is going on now. Listen, let us not take it personally. And let's not really get upset.
I am taking it personally, Dr. Johnson. I am taking it personally, Bishop, because guess what? Our kids are dying. They're killing each other, which is a generational curse.
Elder, this is just the beginning of a new thing that's going to happen.
Dr. Johnson, I am sorry. Dr. Johnson, how long, you and Bishop, tell me, the Bible speaks about generational curses. How many generations have we been dealing with this curse? Tell me.
I
Only
mentioned to you earlier, 430 years. We have 404 years. We got, God's going to do it. Everybody's talking about the reset in 2030, but the reset is more than what you think it is. God's going to turn it around, and the Gentiles' rule is going to end.
Yes, it will.
So you're trying to say that we got 7 years to go through this type of oppression, to go through this type of aggression against us, to go through this type of racism? Are you guys serious? Do you think we're going to be able to continue with Black Lives Matter? We done seen every type of system break down. And before I came on the air, there was another mass shooting in Massachusetts. So we see the increase of satanic forces. Dr. Johnson, y'all got to come up with something better than that.
Well,
Listen,
listen, you got to look at it this way, Elder. The good, the bad, and the ugly of the scriptures must be fulfilled. It must be fulfilled. Things that we don't like, things that are painful, and things that are blessing. It all must be, it got to be fulfilled. It's not a sweet, bitter pill at all times, but the scriptures must be fulfilled. We cannot change that. At least the Lord has not given us the power to do that.
Dr. Johnson, we're under a different dispensation. We're under a different covenant. That was under that covenant. We're under a different covenant. You guys better put on your theologian hats and deal with the reality. We're under a covenant of grace.
Although the covenant of grace was just the fulfillment of the law. That's all it was. Those things that were going on under the law are still going on under the dispensation of grace. The proof of the pudding is what's going on now. We're under the covenant of grace. Look at all the hatred. Look at all the turmoil. Look at all the trial and tribulations we are still going through. It's still coming to pass. Yes,
and
Christ
and
died.
The covenant of grace is almost ending.
Thank you.
So,
thanks, Bishop. Thanks, Bishop. That gives me a great thrill when I go out and talk to young Black kids on the street that we got 7 more years for you to go through this incarceration of going in and out of system. 7 more years of oppression. 7 more years. Come on, guys. Bishop, tell me something.
I think it's going to be more than 7 years, but 7 years may be the beginning of it. Listen, the bottom line is when the devil persecuted the disciples in Jerusalem, they spread out throughout the world, and the Bible says they turned the world upside down. When Israel, the persecution of Israel, God sent the plagues. So anyway, God's going to deal with our enemies. Only thing we have to do is get right with God.
Amen.
God's going to deal with I believe that God is going to deal with our enemies. But if we have states like Florida that don't want us to talk about critical race theories, if we have states like Florida with stand your ground rules, which justifiably give people the right to buy a gun without any kind of background checks, and Dr. Johnson, i.e. mental checks as well, and give guns in the hands of crazy racist white people, and it is some Black racists too, so for all those listening, yes. But when they can get guns with that much hate in their body, when police can come out, when that Black woman, she called the police numerous times on this white woman, and they did nothing. So when they can come out and do all of that, where is the hope for us?
Okay,
Elder Montgomery, please understand this and tell your constituents this. It is our job to prepare this generation for what's going to come even more. It's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. We haven't even gone through the tribulation period yet. You ain't seen nothing.
And guess what? White people going through the tribulation too. Just don't tell me black people are just going through the tribulation, because white people are going to go through that. Just don't tell me that all the tribes were black. Some of them was white, and white people got the get out of jail card, and we're still in jail. Sorry, Charlie, I don't take it. Bishop Butler.
Okay, listen. The good news is the king is coming. He's going to be King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and the government will be upon his shoulders. All of these nations, all of these governments are under the auspices of Satan, including the country that we live in.
Amen.
They're under the auspices of Satan. We're under satanic systems. We cannot, and we're going to have to allow God to do what he's going to do. Only thing we have to do is get connected with God, have the relationship with God, because he's coming back for his bride, the church of the living God.
Well, what can the church do in the meantime to educate this generation? They call this the woke generation. You know, I have a problem with that. I call it the promised generation, which is the smartest generation around. But what can the church do to enable the generation to help? How do we the community build and seek justice for our people, even as God does his part? That's the question that I see on the screen. One of our audience wants to know, how do we as a community build resilience and seek justice for our people, even as God does his part? What is our role? That's the question.
It is our role and it is our job to do just what's going on now. You say this is war cry. Educate our children for war. We are in a war. When you're in a war, you educate your soldiers with the right ammunition. When you're at war, you educate our children to what they're going to face. You don't allow them to keep their head in the sand. Open up your eyes and see the reality of what is going on. Because what this reality is
Dr. Johnson, who's supposed to educate them? It's just not my job. It's just not your job. Who is supposed to galvanize resources and sources together to go out and educate our young black men standing on the corner? Who's going to educate our young black girls on how to wear slips and proper underwear instead of getting their body modified so all their bodies look the same? Back at you, Bishop Butler.
I was just thinking about what do we do? First of all, we have to model the characteristics of the kingdom.
Hold it, Bishop Butler. Question: what is the church doing, and how are they leading the charge, and how should the church act today? That's a question. Bishop Butler, answer that question.
Okay, now the church has to first of all recognize that there's a true church, which is the remnant church, and there is another church, the Laodicean church, which is the lukewarm church. So we have to be the church, first of all. We have to model kingdom characteristics. Whatever the kingdom looks like, God has sent us here on the earth as a mission statement a mission station for the kingdom. Secondly, we have to outreach into the village. So when they had various forts, let's say in the Wild West, sometimes they had to go out and interact with the people that lived in the villages, the natives, Native Americans in this case. Thirdly, we got to
break it down to me so my listeners could know 2023. Are you saying churches got to go out into the urban areas, go into some of the areas that we don't want to go in, down some of the streets that nobody want to walk on? What should the church be doing? I need to know that. Should we be going down to the projects, standing on the corners, helping and talking to our young people? Should we be having protests, telling them to move these smoke shops out of our neighborhoods? Should the church be doing that? Should the church be having seminars and meetings and bringing the gangs in together and telling them about their history? What should the church be doing? Because we sit up here and talk about the church should, oh, this is the way it was. I'm not talking about 3,000 years ago. I'm talking about 2023. Dr. Johnson, I need to know, what can we do today to help what we're going through now? And Dr. Johnson, I'm sorry, this is the question I want to ask you. What should the church be doing based upon that white woman being shooting through the door, killing that black woman? What should we be doing? Sitting down, not doing anything. Tell me, Dr. Johnson.
Well, Ellen Montgomery, I don't know whether you realize that you just answered your own question. I'm gonna tell you something. Okay, you just talked the answer. You had a question within an answer. You just gave it out. What the church should be doing?
I want you to say yes.
Well, listen, ain't nothing new. The remedy is not new. It's just as Christ already gave us the key. The book of Ephesians in the 6th chapter tells us how we must arm ourselves. And the spiritual and the natural part of us, it also tells us how to arm ourselves naturally. Yes, we are at war. It's not going to be sweet. We're going to lose some soldiers and we're going to gain some major recruits. Do not be
okay,
weary.
Dr. Johnson, I got a question for you. Just came across the screen. What do the people need to do to empower the church to act and not just talk? Dr. Johnson, that question.
As a community, as a nation of called out folks, black folks, we need to do just what Bishop Butler just talked about in the book of Deuteronomy, my favorite book in the Bible, by the way, Bishop. We got to go back to God. We got to go back to God. We broke the covenant.
Well, let me tell you something. I agree we got to go back to God, but after we pray, we got to go out to the streets and protest these injustice laws they have in Florida against our people. We must take action. That's what the churches should be up in a roar in Florida. They should be taken to the streets about critical race theory. They should be going in the streets about taking our history out of the classroom. We cannot sit back. Oh, Bishop Butler, for you, a question, Bishop Butler, for you. The church is afraid. Can we acknowledge that and then seek to address it? Bishop Butler, your question.
I wanted to just add to that, as you were talking about the outreach, and I was talking about outreach to the village, invading our PTA meetings, invading our community meetings, voting, choosing our own candidates, joining activist organization and helping to motivate and model the faith even in them. And then finally, disciple, which means educate and train the next generation. On Sunday, we had Children's Day. And
somebody's got their phone, please, if you have noise.
Hold on for a second. My radio turned on.
Okay, Dr. Johnson, you answer the question. This listener say the church is afraid. Can we acknowledge that the church is afraid and then seek to address it? Back at you, Bishop, since you came back. Can we just say the church is afraid? Both you men are from big organizations, and the caller is saying, acknowledge that we are afraid to do anything. Do you agree or disagree? At you, Butler.
I would say that there's several things. It's not, some of it is fear, some of it is ignorance, some of it is lackadaisicalness, and some of it is being fed by the government, money, faith-based funds. So it's a lot of reasons why the churches are not doing what they're supposed to do. But each of us can do something. And I was talking about our youth. 6 of our youth went on a retreat last week, and they got closer to God. Several of them we sponsored, and they came back. And on Children's Day, the 6 had an opportunity. All 6 of them had an opportunity to talk about how they were blessed, what they learned, how their relationship with God is strengthened. So that's 6 more people that are getting closer to God, part of the kingdom. They not only did that, they talked about how, if they were parents, how they would raise their children. They youth choir sang, the youth band played, they did the confession.
But that's your church. That's your church. We're talking about straight across the board. See, that's the problem with the church. We want to save our own, but the world is taking the rest of our children and they're going to a place we don't want them to go. Dr. Johnson, you come from a big organization. Is the church scared? Is your church scared? Is that the reason why we're not going to the streets?
No, I think Bishop Butler gave the key answer. The church is basically ignorant about this. And when I use the word ignorant, I would say they are aware of what's going on, but the backbone is so weak now, and it is. You know, I heard.
Hold it, Dr. Johnson, hold it. The church is weak. The church of God is weak. These Holy Ghost filled people who running and flipping over bitches and speaking in tongues and condemning everything. Oh, wait, I got a caller. The caller says, who's responsible for them being ignorant, Dr. Johnson? That's what they want to know.
The teachers. The teachers are responsible for them.
Come on, who's the teachers? Come on, who's the teachers? Come on, let's say the pastors.
Our pastors, our so-called bishops who got walking around with our elders, a whole lot of things.
Elders. Let me tell you something. They're not ignorant when it comes to asking them for money, for tithes and offering.
No. They major businessmen when it comes to that, because that's the fight. That's the priority. That money. And guess what? We are suffering for that too. But
let me tell you something. Why is the doors, Bishop Butler, of the church closed during the week and only open on Sunday? Why can't we just come up with plans to open our churches? Why can't we come together and work as a team with our sisters and brothers of different denominations? I got a question. Well, people are always talking about God, but what are we doing to build strong, healthy relationships among the people within the community? That's the question at you.
Well, let me say this. That God is the foundation of the wisdom that will help us to build strong families and relationships. So anytime you leave God out of anything, like they did in the Tower of Babel, it's going to fail. So that's the first thing. Now, getting back to what you were talking before, part of it is the ignorance of our untrained pastors, and those that are trained, they have been miseducated. Carter G. Woodson's book, Miseducation of the Negro. So whether they're trained or untrained, there's problems. The untrained don't know what to do. The trained have been told the wrong thing to do. And that's the problem in our community, that we get training from Pharaoh school. We want Moses to come forth, but we send them to Pharaoh schools when they go to school. And that's a problem.
Hey, this is War Cry, and you've seen another great show. And guess what? We want you to tune in next week at 11 o'clock as we continue with dealing with the issues that affect us. We are not politically correct, but guess what? We're Christ correct. And I make no excuses for that. War Cry. Send me your children's name so we can pray for them. warcry.children@gmail.com. Hit us up on our website, War Cry for Our Children, or send us a message on WhatsApp, because we're here to service you. I thank God for our two hosts. It's been a heated conversation between the bishop and Dr. Gregory Johnson and the host. And I want to fight because I'm mad. And I want to do something to do change. And it seems like we can't do anything until we get mad. And I'm mad. One word. What would you like to leave our audience with? One word. Just one word, guys, because we got to go into next week at 11 o'clock. One word, Bishop. What would you like to leave?
Sanctification.
Sanctification. Okay, set aside. I got you. You, Dr. Johnson.
Let us remember the anger that God has.
Okay, and guess what? I'm going to leave several words. Get off your butt and do something, church. We need you to be the body of Christ. War Cry. Join us next week, because, hey, you know how I am. I can go off at any time. Bye. I love you. Love a child.
do acts of kindness, pray. This is Juneteenth. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, gentlemen. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's. It's really Man Day. Happy Black Man Day. Because until we learn to respect the Black man, he can never be treated as a father. Back at you. This is War Cry. Back at you, engineer. See you next
Oscar
week.
Brown Jr.
I apologize for being black, for all I am plus all I lack. Please, sir, please, ma'am, give me some slack, cause I apologize. I apologize for being poor, for being sick and tired and so. Since I ain't slick, don't know the scope, I do apologize. I apologize because I bear resemblance most black people share. Thick lips, flat nose, and nappy hair. Yes, I apologize. I apologize for how I look, for all the lows and blows I took. On those, Lord knows I'd close the book as I apologize. I apologize for all I gave, for letting you make me your slave and go into my early grave. Yes, I apologize. I apologize for being caught, for being sold, for being bought, while being told I count for naught. Yeah, I apologize. I apologize for all I've done, for all my toil out in the sun. Don't want to spoil your righteous fun, so I apologize. I apologize and curse my kind for being fooled, for being blind, for being ruled and in your bind. Yes, I apologize. I apologize and curse my fate for being slow, for being late, because I know it's me you hate. Why not apologize? I apologize and tip my hat, cause you so rich and free and fat. Son of a bitch, that's where it's at, and I apologize.
War Cry. See you next week.
This is War Cry. We're on the wall crying out for our children, our communities, our schools, our churches, our families. This is War Cry. Welcome to our reality. Gun violence, Chicago, Philly, Detroit, New York, Atlanta, just to name a few. Our black children are dying day by day. This is War Cry. Police brutality. Hands up! Don't move. I can't breathe. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. Hashtag All Lives Matter to Christ. This is War Cry. Drugs, rape, mass shootings, school violence. This is War Cry, galvanizing people to pray for our children and to take action. Let's march on Washington. We want prayer back in you. This is War Cry, candles, memorials in every corner in our neighborhood. Who died this weekend? Oh no, not Miss Martha's grandson. This is War Cry. He was only 16. His brother died last year. He was only 13. This is War Cry. We the people. We're the elected officials. This is War Cry. We need the church. Where's the church? Only on Sundays. Get to the streets, church. We need you out there. This is War Cry. Girl, be gone. Boy, be gone. Mothers crying. Fathers being locked up. Welcome to our reality. Identity crisis. This is War Cry. Oh, they're trying to remove our history off the textbook. Oh, critical race theory? It makes them feel bad. It's our reality. Fake reality shows. We want the real truth. Stay woke. This is War Cry. HBCUs under attack. This is War Cry. Equal pay for what we do. We want a reparation. This is War Cry. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Wait a minute. Is that somebody else they're burying that looks like us? Only 12. This is War Cry. Oh, let us come together and pray for our young people, pray for our communities, pray for our schools, pray for our churches, pray that the government gives us what we need, a fair opportunity. This is War Cry, home of the land, home of the brave, land of the free. Who's free? Our men are locked up. This is war prayer. Hashtag mothers against gang violence. Hashtag fathers who love their sons. Hashtag what would Jesus do? This is war cry.
I know who goes before me.